The first cut. My name is Alex. I will tell you a story about my life. It is from a time that was very hard for me. I felt lost, but then something happened that changed everything. I once had a job in a large office in the city. I worked long hours every day, from morning until night. The work was always the same, and I felt very unhappy with my life there. So one morning, I made a big decision to quit my job. I went to my boss and told him that I was leaving. He was surprised by my news, but I felt a new sense of freedom that day. In the beginning, my new life felt quite wonderful. I could wake up late every morning without an alarm clock. I had no work to worry about, and no boss to give me orders. I had saved a good amount of money from my years of work. I believed it was enough money to live on for a very long time. Because of this, finding a new job was not a worry for me. But after a few weeks, the days started to feel long and empty. Each day was just like the day before, with nothing new happening. I was always alone and started to feel very lonely. My friends would often call me on the phone. They asked me to go out with them to the cinema or a restaurant. But I always said no, because I did not have the energy to see anyone. Soon, I stopped answering my phone when I heard it ring. The world outside my apartment window felt very far away. My small apartment became my entire world, and I rarely left it. I began checking my bank account on my computer more often. I saw the number get smaller with every week that passed. A small, cold feeling of fear started to grow inside of me. I knew that I had to be much more careful with my money. I began to buy only cheap food like bread and simple soup. I also stopped buying small things like coffee from the cafe. The feeling of being completely lost in life became stronger. I had no job to go to, and I had no real plan for my future. It felt like I was standing all alone in a very large, empty room. Sometimes I made myself leave my apartment to just walk. I never had a special place that I wanted to go. I just walked for hours and looked at the different people on the busy streets. All the people that I saw on the street looked very busy. They were going to their jobs or laughing with their friends. It felt like all of them had a purpose, but I did not have one. One sunny afternoon, I found myself walking in the local park. The sun felt warm on my skin, but I still felt cold inside. I found an empty wooden bench, and I sat down to just watch. I saw young children running and playing on the green grass. Their happy laughter filled the air as their parents watched. This made me feel a little sad, as I thought about my own past. Nearby, I saw an old man who was feeding the pigeons. He threw small pieces of bread on the ground for all the birds. He had a very calm and peaceful look on his face while he watched. As I sat there, I started to think about my old job and my past. It gave me money and a daily routine to follow every day. I knew in my heart I could not go back to that boring office. The fear about my money was getting stronger and stronger. A voice inside my head told me I had to do something very soon. But the thought of a job search just made me feel exhausted. I kept asking myself the same question: what can I possibly do? I did not have any special skills for a new company to want. I felt like I was trapped in my situation with no clear way out. When I got home that evening, I did not turn on any of the lights. I just sat on my sofa in the complete and total darkness. The silence in my apartment felt loud, and I felt more alone. The next morning, I had to force myself to get out of my bed. I told myself over and over, "Alex, you must do something today." The big problem was, I had no idea what that something was. I decided to walk in a new direction on that day. I went to a part of the city I did not know very well. The streets there were narrower, and the buildings looked much older. I walked for a very long time, and my legs began to feel tired. Then, when I turned a corner, I saw a small and interesting shop. The old sign on the shop said, "Old Treasures," in faded letters. Normally, I would not go into a shop like that one. I knew that I did not have any extra money to spend on old things. But for some reason, I stopped to look in the front window. The shop window was filled with many old and fascinating objects. I saw stacks of old books, several dusty clocks, and some strange toys. It was like I was looking into a window to the past. I stood on the street for a few minutes, looking at the display. For the first time in a long time, I was not thinking of my problems. I was just curious about the items inside the little shop. I felt a tiny spark of interest light up inside of me. It was a feeling I had not had in many weeks, but it was there. I took a breath, reached for the door, and decided to go inside. As I pushed the heavy door open, a small bell rang over my head. The inside of the shop was dark, and it had a special smell. It smelled of old paper from books, and the scent of aged wood. The shop was full of shelves from the floor to the ceiling. Every shelf was completely packed with strange and interesting objects. I did not know where to begin looking, because there was so much. At the back of the shop, an old man sat behind a counter. He had white hair and wore thick glasses on his nose. He was reading a book, but he looked up when he heard the door's bell. The old man did not say hello or welcome me to his shop. He simply watched me with very calm and intelligent eyes. Feeling a bit nervous under his gaze, I gave a small nod to him. I started to walk slowly down one of the narrow aisles. My eyes stopped on an old camera on a shelf next to some books. I reached out and picked it up. It felt surprisingly heavy. Further down the aisle, I found a small box full of old photos. I carefully opened the box and looked at the pictures inside. They were all black and white photos of strangers from the past. I looked at the faces in the pictures and thought about them. Each person had their own story, their own happiness and sadness. I felt a strange but strong connection to these people. I gently put the photos back in the box and put the lid on. I continued walking, moving deeper into the quiet, cluttered shop. In a dark corner, I saw something else on the floor. It was not a normal box for storage or for shipping things. The lid was covered with beautiful carvings of flowers and leaves. The dark wood was smooth, and it looked very old and special. I bent down to get a closer look and touched the box. The old wood felt cool against my skin, and I saw there was no lock. I had a strong feeling of curiosity, and I wanted to see inside. I turned my head and looked back toward the shop's front. The old man behind the counter was still watching me with his steady gaze. His expression was not unkind, he just quietly observed me. I decided to pick the wooden box up from the floor. It was not as heavy as I thought that it would be. I carried it carefully and placed it gently on the counter in front of the old shop owner. The old man looked down at the box, then slowly lifted his eyes. "That is a very special box you have found there," he said. His voice was quiet, like the pages of a very old book. "What is inside of it?" I asked him, my curiosity growing. My own voice sounded a little strange since I had not spoken all day. It felt good to finally ask someone a simple question. A very small smile appeared on the old man's face. "That is the most important question, isn't it?" He replied to me, "I believe the person who needs the box will be able to open it. His words were very strange, and I did not understand his meaning. I thought it was his unusual way of speaking to his cousin Alexis, so I asked a direct question. "How much money does this cost?" He looked from my face down to the box, tapping it lightly. "This box is not for sale for money," he slowly explained to me. "Its price is something different. It costs you a promise." "A promise?" His answer made me feel much more confused. What kind of strange shop had I walked into this afternoon? I wondered what promise he could want from a stranger like me. "A promise is a strong word," I said to the old shop owner. "I do not have much to give right now." I felt a little foolish standing there with no money for a simple box. The old man leaned forward on the counter. "The promise is not for me, young man. The promise is for you," he said. His eyes looked very serious as he spoke these strange words. "What is the promise?" I finally asked him. I was still very confused, but also very curious about this box. I felt like I needed to know more about this strange and unusual price. "Promise that you will try," he said simply. "Take this box and promise that you will try to make something new. That is the price." He pushed the box a little closer to me. I thought about his words for a moment. To try something new. It was a strange price, but I had nothing to lose. My life was already empty, so maybe this was a sign. "Okay," I said quietly. My voice was barely a whisper. "I promise. I will try to make something new with it." I took the box from the counter. It felt warm in my hands now. The old man gave me a real smile this time. It was a kind smile that reached his eyes and made them look bright. "Good," he said. "Now the box belongs to you, Alex." I thanked him and turned to leave the small dark shop. As I opened the door, the little bell rang softly one last time. I stepped back out into the bright afternoon sunlight. I held the box close to my chest as I walked home. My mind was full of questions about the old man and the promise I made. What did he want me to make with this box? When I got back to my apartment, I did not turn on the TV. I went straight to my small kitchen table. I placed the wooden box carefully in the center of the table. For a long time, I just looked at it. I was a little afraid to open it and see what was inside. What if it was empty? What if the old man was just playing a trick on me? I remembered my promise. "I will try," I whispered to myself in the quiet room. I took a deep breath to calm my nerves. Then I slowly put my fingers on the lid of the box. The lid was not hard to open at all. It lifted up very easily and with no sound. I leaned over the box to see what was hidden inside. My heart was beating very fast. Inside there was no gold or money. There were no jewels or expensive things. The box was full of old simple tools. They were small tools for working with wood. I saw little knives, small hammers, and other things I did not know the names of. They were all made of dark wood and shiny steel. They looked very old, but also very sharp and clean. Underneath the tools, there was one more thing in the box. It was a small, unfinished bird made of a very light wood. It was smooth, but it was not yet complete. I took the little bird out and held it in my hand. Someone had started to carve this bird, but they did not finish it. I could see where the knife had made the first few cuts. I felt a little disappointed at first. I did not know what I expected, but it was not this. How could old tools and a wooden bird help me solve my problems? I felt a little bit sad. I put the bird back and closed the lid of the box. I stood up from the table and walked over to my window. I looked down at the busy street, feeling lost again, but I could not stop thinking about my promise to the old man. I told him I would try to make something. Maybe this was my chance to keep my word for the first time in a long time. I went back to the table and opened the box one more time. I picked up one of the small knives and the unfinished bird. The steel of the tool felt cold and serious in my hand. I sat down and looked at the bird for a long time. I saw how the first cuts were made to make the shape of a wing. I decided to try to make another small cut next to it. My hand was shaking a little as I touched the knife to the wood. I made a very small cut. It was not a good cut. It was clumsy and a little bit crooked, but it was a start. I did not feel lost any more when I held the tool. My mind was not empty. It was full of one single thought: how to make the next cut better than the last one. The next day I went out and bought a small block of cheap wood. I did not want to ruin the little bird from the box. I wanted to practice on something else first. I spent the whole afternoon at my kitchen table. I tried to copy the shape of the little bird. Many of my first attempts were very bad, and I made a lot of mistakes. But I did not stop trying. Every time I made a mistake, I started over again with a new piece of wood. I was not bored or tired. I was focused on my work. Slowly, very slowly, my hands started to feel more steady. My cuts in the wood became a little bit cleaner. I was learning how to use the old tools from the box. Days turned into weeks. My apartment was no longer quiet and empty. It was filled with the soft sound of a knife cutting wood and the smell of sawdust. I made many small wooden birds. At first, they were all very ugly and looked strange. But with each new bird, I got a little bit better at my new craft. My money problems were not gone. I still needed to find a way to pay my bills and buy my food. But the feeling of being empty inside was completely gone now. One day, I took my 5 best birds and went back to the park. I sat on the same bench where I felt so lost before. I put the little birds in a row next to me. A woman walking by stopped and looked at my birds. "Did you make these?" she asked me with a warm smile. "They are very simple, but they are also very beautiful." I was surprised that she liked them. "Yes, I made them," I said. It was the first time I felt proud of something in a very long time. It was a very good feeling. She asked me if I would sell one to her for her daughter. I was shocked, but I said yes. We agreed on a small price, and she went away with a big smile on her face. I sold one of my birds. It was not a lot of money, but it felt like $1 million to me. It was money that I earned by making something with my own 2 hands. I went back to the old treasure shop to find the old man. I wanted to thank him for the box and for his help. But when I got there, the little shop was gone. There was just an empty storefront with a sign that said, "For rent." It was like the shop was never there at all. I did not understand, but I was not sad about it. I knew that the box was just the beginning of my new journey. The magic was not in the box or the tools. The magic was in the promise I made to myself, the promise to try. I went home and started to work on a new bird. My hands did not shake any more. They moved with a quiet confidence that I did not have before. I was no longer lost. My problems were not all solved, but I had a new purpose now. I was a person who could make things. That simple thought made all the difference in the world. I still have that very first unfinished bird from the box. I keep it on my desk to remind me of that day. It reminds me that even from an empty place, something new can always begin. I hope this session was helpful. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more such interesting stories. Take care, everyone.